Hey guys, I hope you're good. We are live with Shen During. So feel free to leave me quickly feedbacks if you have a good sound and if everything is okay. Can you hear Shen?
Yeah, I think sounds good.
Yeah. Can someone in the chat let me know? And if I don't have feedbacks, I think it's good. So we will start by showing your showreel right now.
Great.
So let's enjoy this.
Already.
How are you guys? Um, I'm really happy to have Shen today. So Shen, you are animator and illustrator at Adult Swim, right?
I am, yes.
So
Yeah.
can you tell us a bit more about you?
Yeah. I feel like I've always been drawing since I was a little kid, drawing comic books and everything. That's what really got me interested in art. It was like Spider-Man and Batman comics. And so I think when I was probably about 13 or 14, I got a copy of Adobe Flash CS3, and that's what got me into making little crappy internet cartoons. Um, and from there, I think I realized that I really wanted to do something with that in the future. And then just kind of snowballed from there. I don't really have any formal training. I didn't go to school for anything art related, but I took a couple classes here and there at like community colleges and everything. But I think I'm mostly self-taught through like YouTube and just reading books and watching cartoons. Yeah, man. Just trying to stay alive.
Yeah, that's really
Art-
cool. And what I really enjoy about your work is the quality of animation and perspective. So it's really good to know that you've learned by checking around on internet. So
yeah, there's
thanks.
so many resources out there. You don't necessarily need to take the same path everyone else does going to art school, but that's good too. There's a lot of good places out there, like in Paris, of course.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess that right now we have so many class on the internet. You can just follow everything online. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Uh, you, what software do you use? I think that's a common question, but maybe for all the newcomers or people, maybe they want to know. You said Adobe Flash, but did you
Mhm.
evolve into something like Toon Boom?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, so I used Flash for a really long time, and that was a really good starting program to sort of learn animation. And then I switched, I think maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, to using Photoshop to do all my 2D animation, just because you can get so many unique brush types in Photoshop. The interface is terrible in Photoshop for animation, but it's a bit of a sacrifice. You get all these nice brushes, but then you know it's not as nice of a program. But I use Photoshop for 2D animation, and then I'll oftentimes composite the 2D animation in After Effects and add some effects to it. Sometimes, a lot of times, I do my color grading in After Effects, and then do the final edit in Premiere. I do my sound design and Audition. So I pretty much use the whole Adobe Creative Suite
Yeah,
for the most
nice.
part.
So
Yeah,
you are also doing the sound design of your creation.
I am. I do almost all of the sound effects myself, and then a lot of the music. A lot of the music I get through Adult Swim's music libraries that they have. They have a lot of agreements with record labels, and so we're allowed to use certain tracks. And then sometimes I dabble in production. I do a little bit of music here and there, but that's just really for fun. I try to let the professionals do their thing with the music. But yeah,
Yeah, I think that's really cool to do a project from A to Z, and I think
yeah.
it's also so much fun to deal with sound and stuff. And so, what brings you to Adult Swim? So, what was your history behind your beginning and how you become working for Adult Swim?
Yeah, so I put all my animations when I was younger up on YouTube and this website Newgrounds. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but they used to in the heyday back in like 2008 through they had like some really good animators just putting out stuff all the time. And so that's what I really got into, putting out my animations, trying to get people to see it. And I've luckily a couple studio execs from Comedy Central saw some of my animation, and that wound up turning into one of the first freelance gigs that I got. And through the connections I made there, um, I was able to get an Adult Swim internship when I was in college. Um, and so I went to Atlanta and worked in their offices one summer. Met a lot of great people. I got to do a lot of cool work there, and then they kept having me come back each summer. I had my first internship there when I was 19, and then every summer I would come back, and so I had 3 total internships there, and then I did some contract work for them for probably about a year, and then I got lucky. There was a position that was open that I felt really fit what I could do, and it worked out. So now I'm here and I'm doing animation for their Instagram account and for on-air bumps and idents for the network. It's great, but yeah, it was kind of it was a long process, and I really didn't know how it was going to turn out. There were a lot of variables, but I love Adult Swim. I've always loved Adult Swim, so it's a dream getting to work there every day, man. It's a good,
Yes, it sounds like a dream. So
yeah.
if you have some question, feel free to let it in the chat. If you want to animate the live, feel free to leave question. I have one question that can help people. So one of your tips is when you start, you need to share a lot your work online, right?
hmm
So it was the thing that brings you to Adult Swim, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to put yourself out there. It's the only real way to get your work seen. And now we live in the best age possible with the internet. You can get thousands of people to see your work. So that is just as valuable as anything else. And so just having the courage to be vulnerable and put your work out there, you can get a lot of opportunities from that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point right now with internet and about the resource to learn. Maybe some people can have the question: do you have something to recommend?
Like some platform to put stuff out on.
No platforms where you can learn
Of course, of course. I mean, YouTube has a lot of amazing tutorials. There's one particular series. I think it's called. There's an animator named Harry Partridge who used to do a lot of stuff. He's really great. Here, let me look this up. But he has a tutorial series called Happy Harry. Uh, Here we go. I'll send this to you in the chat.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of great resources out on YouTube, particularly, and then every 2D animator will tell you this. There's a book called, I think it's called The Animation Survival Guide or The Animation Survival Kit. You can get it on Amazon. It teaches you all the fundamentals. Yeah, there's that tutorial series. Yeah, that's great. But yeah, really just, if you just, whatever questions you have about animation, if you just Google search it, something will come up to help you out. But the way I think I learned, and I still learn the best, is just watching animation and absorbing as many styles as I can. I oftentimes will pause movies that I'm watching and I'll scrub through frame by frame and just watch how the animators are breaking down a shot. And that really, really teaches you a lot of things just watching. Um, I think that's the best way to learn, is just from pure exposure to the art form.
Yeah, so I think that every people with motivation can learn today. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's really nice. And about your personal influence, can you tell us a bit more about what animate your inspiration?
Sure. My biggest inspiration is Katsuhiro Toma, who's done amazing work, particularly with Akira. Akira is probably the biggest influence I have as an animator. To me, that film is still, one of the best pieces of animation ever made, and I get a lot of inspiration from him. Of course, I think I grew up watching a lot of anime, and so I think that a lot of my style and inspiration comes from Japan. I think those films over there, that's what I've studied the most. And so, other than that, I think reading all those Spider-Man comic books. Todd McFarlane is an incredible artist from the 90s with Spider-Man comics. And he had a very interesting style. And so I think it's a combination of Western comic books mixed with Japanese animation. That's where I get most of my inspiration from.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And what kind of work Adult Swim ask you? Because do you have some kind of freedom, or do you have a particular brief? Did you come to them with an idea? What's the process in your work?
So my position is great because it allows a lot of freedom. I oftentimes will work with a bunch of different shows to help promote them. Like all the weird animation that plays in between commercials, I'm usually involved in some of that. And so the pipeline for a lot of these things, it's either someone asks me, hey, we need an animation to help promote the new season of Rick and Morty or whatever. And so then I'll concept ideas and pitch them, and then we'll pick one and I'll execute it. But a lot of the time, especially with like Instagram, we got to produce so much stuff. So I get to work, on pieces that don't involve Adult Swim characters, that are just my own ideas and creations. And so for that, I'll just, if I have an idea that I want to pursue, I'll just, talk to a couple people on my team or my boss and pitch it, and then I do it. And so it allows for a lot of freedom. There's a lot of trust inside Adult Swim with the artists, which is great because, they don't have to waste as much time trying to, I guess, explain themselves. And they don't have to get wrapped up in a lot of pre-production as much as some other studios do. So it's great. It's fast paced. All the animation I do is really short, ultra short form, like 10 seconds, and so I get to experiment with a lot of different styles, which is awesome. It's a great way to grow, I think, as an artist.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I can feel that you have freedom. I mean, it's really creative, and I think we are really great when we have some creative freedom. We have a question from Alvaro. He asked, "How was your start on Adult Swim, and what type of difficulties did you face to produce your animation?"
Sure. So my start there, I did when I first got there as an intern and as a contractor. I wasn't really an animator. I worked on I worked on Adult Swim's creative team, and so they were responsible for all off-air art. So anything that was not related to the actual show creation, they're responsible for. So all the billboards, all of the T-shirt designs, cups, frisbees, whatever, all the merchandising, posters. That's what they did, and so even though I was really interested in animation, that was how I got my foot in the door with them. And so I just did a lot of illustration and graphic design work. And then when I could, I would try to do some animation, and I would try to find people to show my work to at Adult Swim. And eventually, I was able to get my animation portfolio in front of the right people. And they were like, "Hey, maybe this guy should start doing some, animation for us." And that's kind of how it naturally developed. But I did start out there in a position that I guess maybe wasn't as exciting to me, since I love illustration. Animation is part of that. But, I really just wanted to do animation, and so it took some time, but it eventually got there. And then the next part of that question, what was it? The difficulties facing when I produce animation. I think right now for me, my biggest difficulty is with the type of work I'm doing for Adult Swim right now. It's so fast paced, and I'm producing so many animations and they're very short. So the challenge in that is that I try to reinvent the wheel every time I do something and do a different style, not only a different illustration style, but a different animation style. And so that can be very difficult. You can get burnt out really quickly trying to do new stuff all the time. If you're working on more long form animation, it can be nice because you get in the groove, and once the style is set, uh, you know, it's just you can get comfortable, and if you're working on a TV show, it's going to be the same style throughout the whole thing, and that can get boring. So the nice thing about working in short form stuff like commercial work is that it's very exciting, but that also is the challenge, is that it changes all the time. And so that's my biggest difficulty, I think, is concepting all these zany ideas and doing different character designs for each one. It can get pretty exhausting, but it's what I live for. I really love doing it, so it's not totally a bad thing at all.
Yeah, so to avoid your the burnout, I see some nice tool behind you. So what's your passion, and what are you doing beside animation?
I think my hobbies. I love music. I grew up playing piano, and that's why I really love to experiment a little bit with sound design and production. But I try to let that just be a hobby. I don't want to get too wrapped up in it because I do want to focus on the animation aspects of my work. But I love music, and I love being outside. I love snowboarding and hiking. So whenever I'm not working, I'm hanging out with friends out in the mountains.
Yeah, sounds really nice and important to keep the mind sometime outside of the work.
Yeah, man. I know a lot of people that just spend all their time working, and that can be a really good thing, but it can get very exhausting. It's good to have other hobbies and outlets, for sure.
Yeah, that's a personal question, but do you have um, a, a favorite work in all of your work? What's your favorite one, if you have one?
My favorite right now is I think you're looking at it. It's on the top left with the red robotic arm.
Yeah, it's the Sick Machine.
Yeah, yeah, that one. That one's. I think that one's my favorite right now. That one was a lot of fun to make, um, and it was pretty. It was pretty a pretty long process because I was experimenting with a lot of things I'd never done before. A lot of smoke animation and 2D effects, and that's kind of I think my weakness. And so I've been really focusing on those types of animation right now, just to try to get better at it. And I think that's probably why it's my favorite, because it was a struggle for me to learn some of these things for that piece. And so I think it's one of the ones I'm more proud of right now.
Yeah, and the result is really nice because I'm not a 2D animator, but I can't find any weakness in the smoke or anything. So it's really fun to know that it was like an hard work for you because we don't
Yeah,
know the background behind an animation, and it's also good to know that people and artists are always evolving because maybe many newcomers can be afraid of this, but I think everybody have some struggle. So your struggle is
yeah,
smoke, right?
yeah. I'm scared all the time, man. Every time I take on a new project, a lot of the times it's something I don't know how to do, and you just got to have the confidence. In time, you gain the confidence to just believe in yourself and know that you'll be able to take the project in a good way, and you'll be able to make it look good. But it's scary a lot of the times when you're working with stuff you've never done before. But it's also very exciting. Uh, so it's if you can handle the intensity, that's the Adult Swim is a great place. It's so much fun to work there, and it's very intense. And so to keep up, you really got to push yourself, and that's what I think makes a really good artist. And so I'm very excited to work there because I see myself growing as a person and as an artist, and pushing myself creatively and artistically.
Yeah, that's nice. What's your ambition or dreams? Did you um, want to work on an animation in the future, like some kind of Rick and Morty, or do
Mhm.
you what do you imagine for your future?
I'd love to have my own show, to be honest. I feel like that's a lot of animators' dreams, but um, I really want to make a short film first. I have a lot of ideas, and I work with such short animation that I would like to work in more long form stuff. And I've worked on a couple shows in the past, and it's been very fun. And so I think that in the future, maybe the next step for me is working with a team of animators to create either a short film or a TV show. That would be a dream come true for me. Yeah, man. I don't really know though. I'm having fun just being in the industry, getting to do this. I'm open to I'm open to any path. Uh, this field can be very fluid, and if you let yourself kind of go with the flow, you can get into a lot of fun stuff. And so I'm just excited to see where it goes. I don't really have any concrete plans at this point. I really just want to keep progressing and keep making things that excite me.
Yeah, until you have fun, that's the most important.
Yeah, exactly, man. If you're not having fun, don't do it.
Yeah. So, what's your advice for all the new artists watching us? Do you have advice, special advice for all the people that want to start?
Yeah, man. Hold on. I'm sorry. I think my cat
No
whining.
problem.
One sec. Hey, shh, be quiet. Come on, man. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think if I think a lot of people just don't know how to start. They get a little scared, um, especially if they, this happens to me too. When you see every time I'm on Instagram every day, there's another artist that blows my mind, and I'm just like, how did you get, to this level? And you really just got to jump in, and you got to not care about what your stuff looks like. And it's helpful when, like for me, I started at a young age to where I was still at that point where I didn't really care what people thought. Um, because when I started drawing, I was like 4 or 5, and so at that age, you just draw just because it's fun for you, but you don't think about it in any other way. You don't care about showing people. You don't care about people liking it. You just do it for yourself, and that's the most important thing. Is creating art for yourself first. If you go into something saying like, hey, I want to get into this because I want to be famous or I want to work for a certain studio, I think it really helps to just start working just because it makes you happy, and then from there, things will come and you'll get better. But um, really just don't be afraid to jump into something and to learn something. Just go for it, and you'll learn the skills as you go. And don't and try not to compare yourself to all these other artists out there that are really talented. Comparing yourself can be good at times because it pushes you, and you can learn from that, but it can also be very toxic. It can hold you back, and it can get you really down on yourself. So staying positive, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's a very good advice and a very good thing to know. Yeah, I see many people struggling with trying to find too quickly a job, and
Yeah,
they do not have enough time to find what they like or their own style. And
yeah,
for many years, they are just working on some corporate stuff they don't like.
yeah. I guess another piece of advice too, and this is something that I deal with at times, and I dealt with when I was a little younger. You know, for me, I always knew that I really wanted to be an animator, and so when I was going through the motions and getting jobs that weren't exactly what I wanted, it kind of really depressed me at times, because I was like, oh man, I'm not where I need to be. I'm not where I want to be. But I think it's important to sort of be happy where you are, and as long as you're pushing yourself to get to where you want to go, it's okay if you're not. You don't. That doesn't. Your first job doesn't have to be your dream job. Um, just have in your mind where you want to be and keep working towards it. You know, I started out doing something that I didn't really care for that much, even before Adult Swim, just doing freelance illustration, commission work for like, cartoon characters, like, making someone's profile image on like Tumblr or something. I was just trying to scrape money, and then all these freelance gigs when I was really early on in my career, stuff that I just hated. But it's part of the process. You got to get some experience, and you got to learn. And so it's a process, and even now, I'm nowhere near to being where I really want to be, but I'm working towards it, and that's the important thing is being okay with where you are. Don't get too bogged down and stressed out about it. Just have fun. That's because with especially with art, I feel like everyone starts doing art because it makes them happy, and then it's an interesting thing working in the industry and getting paid to do it and having it be your source of income, because prior to working, when you're just creating for yourself, art only brings you happiness for the most part. But then when you're working, trying to make a living, there's a lot of the times art can bring you unhappiness. And that was something I experienced for the first time when I started working. And that's a very strange feeling. And so if you can be comfortable with yourself and at least comfortable with what you're doing, then that helps a lot. Because there will be ups and downs. That this happens in any field that you work in.
Times we can be happy to do some work, and sometimes it can be a real struggle because it's horrible because you are doing what you like, but it's not bringing you happiness. So I think it's good as a beginner to try to find a dream job, because if you are doing what you like but for something you don't like, it's going to be really difficult, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, we have a question from Alvaro, who asks, do you have a particular workflow?
Yeah. Um, for me, I think it's kind of standard. I start with usually doing a quick pitch, um, with some concept drawings, really just a couple rough thumbnail sketches to get the idea across. And once the idea is approved, I go into the storyboarding phase. So I storyboard the whole thing, and I also like to do a couple style frames. So fully executed, colored, and rendered frames to get the client or whoever I'm talking to, whether it's freelance or with Adult Swim, for the people that are wanting the animation from me. It's good to show them what the finished product could look like. And so the storyboards and the style frames, and from there I go into the keyframe animation and rough animation, and I'm usually piping in the client. I'm showing them every phase of the pipeline to make sure that we're on the right track and on the same page. And then once the rough animation is done, I go into the cleanup and coloring and final composite and effects. Um, and in terms of the sound, if it's dialogue based, of course, I got to have the voices first before I do a lot of the animation with the lip syncing. But I don't work with a lot of that stuff, so most of the time the sound kind of comes after, um, and I'll engineer and record the sound effects, and sync them up to the music, or sync them up to the animation afterwards. That's pretty much how it usually goes. It's fairly standard, but sometimes I skip a couple of those like a couple of those sections of the pipeline. Like if with Adult Swim, since there's a lot of mutual trust and we need to do things so quickly, a lot of the times I'll skip the storyboard phase actually and just jump right into things. Or sometimes I'll skip. I won't have to do as involved of a pitch. I won't have to show as much. I don't have to do the style frames. I can just jump into things, and so it's fairly flexible at times. But I'd say I'd say usually that's what my workflow looks like, and then my pipeline and everything.
Sounds really nice, and sounds cool to know that you have trust at Adult Swim. We have another question from GM. He asked, "Did you have time to do some personal projects?"
That's the thing right now. That's what I'm struggling with. I don't have as much time to do personal projects, and you know that's a total challenge to try to balance your life with that, because personal work is really important, because even when you're doing fun stuff with art, when it's not totally yours, there's a satisfaction in that, but then there's nothing like just doing something that you really want to do when you want to do it. So it's a balancing act that I have to figure out, of doing my work at work, taking on freelance projects on the side. So after that, and then spending time with my girlfriend and friends, I don't have much time left over after that. So I really just have to force myself to do personal projects just to stay sane. But it can be hard to fit that time in. But I got a couple things I'm working on. I'm trying to work on a short film, but it's gonna take it's gonna take a long time. I'm a little too ambitious with it. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah,
Yeah, one idea could be to maybe start with a Kickstarter, or trying to get some guys to help you, maybe.
yeah, yeah. That's something I definitely will look into in the future. think right now, at least with like a short film that I'm planning, it's going to be like 3 or 4 minutes. And so once I storyboard it and map it out, I might try to approach some of the guys I've worked with before, or a couple small studios, and see if they might be able to help me out. Because it's animation is very time consuming, regardless of the type of animation, and 2D can take a really long time. So,
Yeah.
but I want this thing to take 5 years. So yeah, I'll have to figure something out.
Yeah, definitely cool to know. And if one day you need the motion designers community to help you to reach people or share
Yeah,
something, you can count on us.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. So people, if you have other question, feel free to ask it under the chat. So we can try to answer it directly on the live. So one personal question is, do you try sometimes to get help from 3D for perspective, or do you do everything with drawings and 2D?
I think for me, a lot of the time, I try to not reference any 3D, just so I can try to learn. It can be so hard with certain angles and perspectives to figure out how to draw something, but that I enjoy that challenge. And so I think sometimes when I really can't figure something out, I'll reference something like a 3D model of something that I'm animating. But most of the time, I try to stay away from it. Not that there's anything bad with that, with referencing stuff like that. It can be very helpful, but um, I try to not do that as much as I can, just so I can learn as much as possible in terms of the actual drawing. But there are definitely some projects where I just can't. I'm just like, I don't know how to do this, and so I'll reach out to one of my friends who's a 3D modeler and be like, can you render this for me, model this so I can understand what it looks like from this angle. One of the things I struggle with a lot is like, I don't know, like it can be really hard with some like faces from behind. Like I'm terrible at drawing ears from behind. I have no idea how. Like that makes no sense to me. And so sometimes looking at like a basic character model and turning it around can really be helpful, because one of the hardest things with 2D animation is like, character turns, because you got to draw every frame, and you got to you got to completely understand that character's form to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's like I think that might be the only thing that I think is harder in 2D than it is in 3D is, of course, the sculpting and modeling in 3D is insane, and I'm not going to pretend to understand how that works, but it's very hard for me, at least, to draw turning objects like that, because you got to be really, really consistent with the volume of the object when drawing it, and the line weights have to be really good, and when something's off, when you're doing turns like that, you can instantly see the problem. And so even people who aren't artists, they can see that something looks weird. So I think I actually tend to avoid shots like that. But I think like that animation that just played with all the rocks, I did have like a model of like a piece of a rock that I used in reference to help me at times with the debris spinning around. Sometimes it's very good to have that reference, for sure.
Yeah, of course, and that's always fun to see 2D artists telling that 3D is hard, and when you have some 3D artists online, they say that 2D is too hard for them. So I guess
it's all hard, man. It's just a different skill set. It's my girlfriend is a 2D animator, a 3D animator, and we come from similar backgrounds, but we've gone in completely different directions. And 3D blows my mind. I have no real understanding of how it works, but it's crazy to me that like there's a lot of 3D animators that don't draw or don't know how to draw, and I think that's so awesome that there's, for me growing up, the animation was so engraved in my mind as hand drawn because all the classic Disney films I saw and all the Japanese animation. And then as I got older, seeing all this 3D stuff come out of the woodwork, it's really exciting to see all these different styles. And I really hate when people try to compare them, saying like, "Oh, this is the better art form," or "This is the harder art form." You know, with animation, it's all hard, and it's all the same fundamentals. It's just a different approach to doing it. And I think that it's good if you can surround yourself with people who have mutual respect for all the different art forms, because they're all so awesome and so unique. I love
Yeah,
3D animation, man. It scares me though because it seems so crazy to me. But
that's the same in music. I think people are even harder with motion graphics and or animation, because in music you can have like simple things and everybody will going to tell, oh, it's amazing. But in art, in visual art, sometimes all the people can say, hey, it's too simple. And that's yeah, really painful sometimes, because sometimes you need to do simple things to reach more people, to have
yeah,
something
definitely.
eye-catchy, and also sometimes things are designed to be on a phone and not on
Yeah.
cinema, so you need to have like less details. And so we have another question from GM. Do you have top artists you follow? So what's your top three artists of the moment?
Top three artists. One of my favorite guys. Let me make sure I'm getting his name right. Um, his name's Mao Lincinas. He's on Instagram. He runs a clothing company called Easy Demons, but I think he's on Instagram as
Can you send me
yeah,
the
yeah. Let
name?
me look this up.
I don't want to type
Yeah, no
something
problem.
wrong or
Let me send this to you. Here he is.
okay. I was typing the name of another guy, so
Cool. Yeah, right now he's posting a lot of photos of his trip in Japan, but he does just these brilliant illustrations of these like Japanese sort of like gangster streetwear type guys, and it's just very unique and very graphic. And his character designs are so good. I love the way he uses colors. Um, he's just brilliant. I've been following his work for a long time.
yeah, I will
Yeah,
share the link in the chat. And yeah, the characters are really nice, and I think he's also inspired by Akira.
yeah, oh yeah. And I think that's probably why I like his stuff so much because I share the same influence. And then one of my favorite animators out there, his name is Benji Brook. I've had the pleasure of working with him on a couple things, but he's consistently putting out some of the best 2D animation out there right now. He's a very, very nice, down to earth, talented guy. So it's really fun to see what he does, man. It's crazy. He's done work for so many different things. I think most recently he did animation for the Teen Titans Go movie, which
Yeah,
was incredible. So he's kind of like he's an incredible animator, and I think he does a lot of I guess sort of like art directing nowadays. And so it's fun to see. It's fun to see him do all these different things, man. He's a great. His design is just so tight. You know when you see a really good 2D animator when they're also just an incredible illustrator and designer, and that oftentimes is that's how you get really good when you have a really strong sense of color, composition. All those fundamentals are just as important.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
Benji's.
actually locked in one of his animation. It's really mind blowing.
Yeah. Dude, that kind of that crazy animation right there. I don't even know how you start that, man. It makes no sense. You just got to pull it out of the ether, out of your mind. Yeah, those are the two guys I think that impressed me the most and that I follow the most on Instagram. But Parker, let's see here, Parker Jackson. Look this guy up. There's this artist Parker Jackson. I think he works for the company Giphy, um, and he's like an art director there. And he has a very different style of art. I don't think he really does animation. He does a lot of digital painting and traditional painting. Um, but that's I think part of the reason why I like his work so much is that it's so different from a lot of the stuff I see. He draws a lot of grotesque creatures, but the way they're rendered, the way he paints them is just gorgeous, even though they look really creepy. And
Oh yes.
yeah, this guy's crazy, man. It's crazy, and it's not the type of art that I normally consume. And I think that's why I like it so much because it's so different from me. Um, yeah, stuff's great. It's pretty creepy. Yeah,
Yeah, and it brings original ideas. I like to see new artists making different stuff because it can lead you to open your mind in another way of doing shapes or
yeah,
imagining stuff. So it's always great to check these guys.
yeah, yeah, man. It's good to absorb a lot of different types of art.
Yeah.
See all these different influences. You know.
Also, if you have kids and you can inspire them with
Yeah,
nightmares.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, really great artists. I will also share the link. So, guys, if you have some few questions, we can answer. And if you do not have a question, we are near the end of the live. So feel free to ask Shane something, and be sure to follow it, of course, on Instagram. Shane Doring. I will let the link, and we share sometime some of his work, and of course check out his website and support his work because it's a really great animator. And thanks to him to be available today for this live interview.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, man.
You can also follow him on Vimeo. So no questions. So I think you told everything.
Great.
So we will wait 1 or 2 minutes left. Maybe some guys are typing.
Sure.
And if not, we will end the live. So do you have something to tell or another word you want to share with people?
Gosh, like I said, just like to encourage anyone that wants to make things to keep making things. Expression is such an important thing. For me, it really helps me get through the tough parts of my life whenever I'm sad or angry. Expressing myself through art is very important. So I'd like to just encourage people to keep doing that, whether that's with music or dance or drawing or 3D sculpting, whatever it is. Find something, find a positive, creative outlet. I don't think enough people are 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 taught that at a young age to just make things, whatever they want to make. So I like to see young people making stuff, man. It's very, very fun seeing all these new artists pop up.
Yeah, we have the latest question, and the question is, how did you find your style? I think it's a bit related to what you said in the beginning.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of the times I feel like I don't have a style because I work. I mean, a lot of the stuff I post on Instagram, a lot of that's personal work and not Adult Swim or client work. But so that sort of has more of a cohesive feel to it. But I work with so many different characters and styles that I feel like a bit of a chameleon at times, which is a good and bad thing. Sometimes I feel like I don't have a style, and that can get kind of sad because it's nice to have a style that you're known for. But in terms of making money in the art industry, especially as a 2D animator, the ability to draw and animate in a bunch of different ways is really important because then you can work on a lot more projects. But I think that the core aspect of my style that I see sometimes, I guess, really comes from what I mentioned earlier, all the influences I get from Japanese animation. I think that's the biggest thing. That's, I think, whenever I'm drawing how like for something that's not work related, I find myself kind of drawing in those styles, like pulling a lot from Akira and like Dragon Ball Z, all of that stuff. I think that really influences me the most in my personal work. So I guess if I have a style, I think that it comes from those sorts of things. You know, Studio Ghibli films, Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke. Those things had a huge impact on me when I was younger. So I think that's probably the rawest form of inspiration that directly bleeds into my styles the most.
And we have another question. Did you have the chance to see the fourth season of Rick and Morty yet?
So I don't think that I can talk about too much of that, but I know that what I can say is that they're working on it. It's coming soon, hopefully, and it's going to be great. I love Rick and Morty. It's such a fun show. Um, and what's cool about Rick and Morty is that, you know, a lot of these TV shows, especially in the United States, they're outsourced. The animation is outsourced to like South Korea, and with Rick and Morty, it's completely done in a studio in the United States, and so it's very exciting to see that happen. I love to see that. Of course, you know, all the artists overseas in South Korea, they're very talented, but um, it's nice, I think, to have shows done in house with a group of people. There's a lot of disconnect with sending your storyboards over to a company far away, and they might not completely understand what you're trying to do. But Rick and Morty's a great show, man. It's season 4 is going to be great. If you're a Rick and Morty fan, you're going to like it for sure.
Yeah, and also that's a really great show, and we also have a French version of Rick and Morty. So all
Yeah.
that's nice. Very few American shows have French voiceovers. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
South Park, Futurama, American Dad, Family Guys,
yeah.
and Rick and Morty. So
It's
that's
great.
really cool.
You know, one of my favorite shows, I think, is from France, is Last Man. Have you seen that?
No, I don't think so.
Uh,
Send a link,
yeah,
please.
yeah. It's about like a boxer. Um, it's incredible. I think it's yeah, I think it's French, or at least started as a French comic series. Maybe it's not done in France, but
Oh, okay.
um, that's one of my favorite things out there right now. And that's that it's not from, you know, it's not animation from the United States, but it's incredible. I think all the best animation is coming from France and England. Those are the places where, you know, because Golden Wolf, that animation studio in England, they're fucking incredible. Um, Paris has such good stuff coming out of there, man. It's the U.S. is getting dull. We need to step up our game for sure.
Yeah, actually, I don't know the what it is, The Last Man, right?
Last minute, you need to check it out, man. It's incredible. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
and you're right. It's from France,
Yeah,
so definitely a show to watch.
yeah, for sure. It's very good.
So
Yeah.
thank you, Shane, for your time
Yeah.
today,
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
and
Thanks for having
see you next time.
me. Yeah,
Have a good day.
yeah. You too. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.